Have you ever gotten stuck on a puzzle in a game where you simply can't figure out what you need to do to progress, but after a quick Google search, the solution was actually incredibly simple? Players can get stuck and frustrated, like here in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, not because they're not clever enough to solve the puzzle, but only because they don't know or recall the right tool for solving the puzzle. But here, instead of jumping on it, as the players have been doing for hours, the solution was actually to rhythmically press up and down on the D-pad to make the barrel bounce higher. Let's look at the psychological concept of recall priming and how we can use that in video game level design to resolve this frustration and make our players feel extra clever. When people hear the word priming, they sometimes think of controversial studies claiming hidden cues can influence our behavior. Instead, we're looking at recall priming, making previously learned information easier to remember when players need it. Like how you can sometimes spend ages looking for your keys, and then one small clue suddenly makes you remember exactly where you left them, like seeing a toy car or a car commercial, making you remember that you left your keys in the car. That information wasn't gone, but you just needed the right cue to retrieve it. This principle can apply directly to video games as well. Let's look at an example in Crimson Desert, a game with an insane amount of different mechanics, abilities, skills, and attack variations. Encountering ruin formations out in the world, marked on a map with a question mark, the player knows that there's something to find or solve here, though in this example of the Duskwood Hill ruins, nothing can be interacted with, and the player might be left confused and frustrated. However, the game offers various ways to burn objects like bushes and vines. Though if the player doesn't recall this in a moment, there are no hints pointing towards this mechanic being relevant here, and might result in a player going through tons of different abilities and attacks to finally give up in frustration. But if the player recalls the ability to burn things, and that they can manipulate some puzzle elements by stabbing their sword into them, the puzzle solution of lining up the pillars to the same height isn't actually all that complicated. So let's test with a practical example of how we can mitigate situations like this. I created a small example setup where the player encounters some enticing treasure up ahead on a raised platform, but first needs to defeat some enemies to reach it, after which they realize that the platform is too high up to climb, but luckily they spot a pushable object in a room nearby that they could use to climb up, but the entrance is blocked by impassable vines. Though the solution might seem obvious to us, some players might end up wandering around the room looking for hidden pathways, switches, or other mechanics, not realizing that they could use their torch to burn the vines. To mitigate this, I'll use some priming leading up to this segment to help them remember. First, I'll add a cave segment leading up to the main puzzle room, and I'll make sure this section is proper dark and hard to navigate blindly, which should prompt the player to take out their torch to light their way. In this cave segment, I'll scatter around some burnable vines that the player is guaranteed to bump into, which, when they have their torch out, will be set on fire, actively reminding them that their torch is able to set foliage on fire. As an additional subtle layer of priming, I'll add some torches in the main puzzle room as well, as an extra subconscious reminder. Now, when the player goes through this segment of our game, they'll be reminded of our torch and fire mechanics, are briefly distracted by some enemies, and when encountering the vines blocking the way, should now more easily recall the solution. In conclusion, using recall priming, we can leave subtle cues in our environment to shape what players notice, expect, and remember without directly telling them, preventing them getting stuck and frustrated while still feeling clever for coming up with the solution themselves. If you would like to support me and see more level design content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and possibly hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.